Get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavlich and Jesse Martineau.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Me and Jesse podcast. I am Mark Pavlich, and across the way in the Grove, the star of the show, the one and only, the big sexy Jesse Martineau.
It's kind of sad because I was really hoping to have more things to, make fun of the Oilers about other than golfing. And so, yeah, but here we are. We're here without the Oilers this far in the playoffs.
Along with Toronto golfing together.
Yes,
I'm sure
they're together
Mitch
golfing
Marner
right now.
and McDavid and Dry, they're all golfing together right now somewhere in the Muskoka area in Toronto. Yeah, so, that's where all the rich people go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there was a crazy game last week with going into 4 overtimes, like 15 seconds left in the 4th overtime between Florida and Carolina. And our friend finished the game. Well, mine, anyway. Matthew
I love him.
I love this guy. I love this guy so much. And I know Oilers fans hate him. That's his job. That was he did it perfectly. He's the guy you hate. And every team needs one. And the Oilers need one back. And in all honesty,
of course,
when you think about Zach Kassian, I'm not a Zach Kassian fan.
No.
But in what he had to do, he took attention off of the team's performance and put some on himself. What's he going to do next? And you need a guy like that, especially when I feel it's getting tough, that you need a guy that's able to deflect some of the pressure onto another issue so the rest of the team can focus on what they're supposed to do and win a game. And that guy can take some of that pressure, and some of the other team's focus can be divided. And we all know divide and conquer is the right way to do things. It can be divided and focus on that one guy. And every team needs one if you're going to go deep in the playoffs. And again, I think that, Florida is making a case for themselves that, hey, we're not done. We lost Huberdeau. We lost some big pieces, but we got some back and actually made us younger and arguably better. Really?
Florida, Vegas win it. I'm okay with either one now moving forward. Just for the fact that, Vegas, Florida, I'm okay with it. And what Tkachuk is just, to watch the overtime. And you know what's crazy about that? When you're watching it, you just can't turn it off. Like when it went into the first one, to the second one,
like
to the third.
You get in the loop.
It's like, I gotta see the end. I got to. Like, it's nuts.
I know people don't like, if you don't like watch hockey, here's the thing.
Yeah.
In the playoffs, overtime, so whatever, like extra time for that or overtime in football, in the NHL in the playoffs, it's sudden death, but it never ends until someone scores. So
it truly never ends.
It doesn't end. So on Thursday, they played 4 extra periods. They played 2 full games plus an extra period to solve one game. And that's how hockey works. And that's what makes it so amazing in the playoffs is it can go on and on and on and on. And you kind of have those feelings sometimes when those long ones start. You're like, they're not giving anything on there. And then there's a part in the, maybe the 5th overtime, or sorry, the 5th period, where you can see they're all like, okay, we need to conserve some energy here. And they all just kind of coast for 15 minutes almost to try to like, okay. And then all of a sudden they get a second win back. And so there's, I don't think people understand
when we say, like, I don't care, Americans, wherever you are watching the show, when the toughest, the hardest, the most extreme trophy on the planet to win is the Stanley Cup. There will be no debate about this. Last week's game on Thursday proved that once again. It is insane.
2 games in one.
To play 7 periods of hockey and you see the elation. Literally half the crowd was falling asleep.
Oh, yeah.
Like
half had to leave.
Because it was like 2 in the morning or whatever.
Late. Yeah.
2 or 3 in the morning where they live.
I think it was almost 2. I think it was. I can't remember.
2 in the morning where they live, and they're still playing. And this is the part I love about NHL hockey and the playoffs is it's to the death.
Yeah.
It is to the death.
And really, technically, when you're there and you finish the game, like, oh, we play tomorrow.
Yeah,
you still have to go to bed, but technically,
you go to bed
tomorrow
and the
that
next
you're
day
playing
after,
another game,
you're
and you've
playing
already
again.
played 2 in one day. And so, like, it's not baseball where you're throwing out double headers and ready to go the next day. It's a lot different. So that was crazy. But I don't think anyone cares about the playoffs right now. It is literally maybe the 4 least teams, other than Vegas, I would argue, that people care about. Let's be real. And maybe the league cares about, because
you're right.
Carolina, Florida,
right.
Vegas, Dallas, maybe. Man, I don't know. It is probably one of those ones where they're like, wow, this Final Four is not the ratings for that we were kind of hoping.
But the way they all got here is something special.
It is. I will say that this was maybe one of the first times where you're like, geez, like these teams actually really did something and had to do something to be here. Maybe other than Carolina, because Carolina has actually been one that's rolled all year long and is getting there. And they walked through the last team and
had great success as an organization.
Yeah, exactly. And it's it is what it is. But whatever. I was really disappointed that they canceled the F1 race over the weekend. Obviously, there's a bunch of flooding in Imola in Italy, and they couldn't put the pressure on everything. But we'll be back this week in Monza, the Temple of Speed. That's what they call it. Pretty neat, eh?
Yeah.
Hopefully they go back to Imola again this year. I don't know if they will, though. But we have a great guest on coming up today, Alan Jouban, or as Mrs. P likes to say,
Jouban.
We'll have him right when we come back on the Me and Jesse podcast.
Whew, that's smooth, gentlemen. You know what else should be smooth? Your back. My wife doesn't like back hair. Neither do I. I've never heard anyone say they love running their fingers through my back hair. So get rid of it. Get Backscape. Backscape will get rid of your back hair. Less than 5 minutes, maybe a couple times a week. Take it into the shower. It's really easy to use. And my wife loves it. She does not love back hair. Stay smooth, gentlemen.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Me and Jesse podcast. I am Mark Pavlich, across the way in the Grove, the big, sexy Jesse Martineau, and our dear friend, stuck in an airport probably somewhere in the world, which nobody knows where, Alan Jouban.
Jouban. Your wife has trained you well, man. Unfortunately, I'm not in the airport, but I'm in the Santa Fe Hotel, which is not the newest or nicest hotel in Las Vegas. So, but we're making do, man. We're good.
Well, that's
so
thanks so much.
We see everywhere now, man. You're stuck in it. Like, you are now the new version of the traveling man, okay? And you are everywhere. And I was laughing because I was on your Instagram story, and you were literally stuck everywhere. Like, you are stuck somewhere at all times. Please tell me what the hell's going on.
It's been tough, man, because with work, you want to work more, right? And you guys know, I mean, you're in the fight business, you travel a lot, and there's fights, especially with the UFC. These guys put on, I want to say it's like 44 shows a year or something like that. It's a lot. Yeah. It's basically every weekend. Now you're adding in Power Slap League, you're adding in Road to the UFC, which is something I'm doing next week. You have all these events, and then you're adding in, you're sprinkling in, little promotional events where, like, I flew to Vegas on Tuesday to do a little promo for the Power Slap, flew home on Wednesday, flew back on Thursday now for the fight night. So it's just, things are just getting sprinkled in. So it's great for me, though. I'm getting to work a lot. There's fighters are getting to fight a lot more frequently. Everybody's winning.
Yeah.
But you're gone a lot. You're on the road all the time. And what's tough for me is, I moved after I retired from fighting. I moved back to where I grew up in Louisiana. My whole half my life, my fighting career was in Los Angeles. I had moved to LA. That's where I met my wife, had my son. I had my entire career. When I stopped fighting, I said, you know what? I'm going to be on the road all the time. I want to be near family. So I moved back to Louisiana. It's been almost 2 years now. But we're not near a major hub, a major airport.
No,
and God, if I could go back, I don't know if I would necessarily change things just for the airport, but I realize how essential it is for people that travel to be near a major airport, because you can jump on an international, I go to an international airport and take a one-way trip to where you're going,
Correct.
knock out, wake up, you're there, boom, it's done. But I have to go to I go to Texas. I either go to Dallas for American or I go to Houston for United. And then there's sometimes a 45-minute layover, sometimes a 3-hour layover, or what's been happening to me now, 9-hour, delay, you miss your flight. And so I've been stuck at the Houston airport the last 3 weeks for like 9 hours.
Yeah.
And it's brutal. It's brutal. You go there after an hour and a half flight, and I miss my flight. Now I'm standing in line to get a connection, and it keeps getting delayed. And so they say, I get there at noon, and they say, now your next flight to go to Vegas is at 9 p.m. at night. So I've got to kill 9 hours in an airport with a bunch of frustrated people and crying babies and drunk people. And so that's the stories you've been seeing. And it's been tough, man. It beats me up. I've been getting to Vegas at midnight, and I'm worn out, having to get up and kind of be on, spot on for TV. But it stems from this, man. Unfortunately, I'm getting a little too deep into flying, but I used to fly American all the time, and if you fly, this show's going to be all about flying, apparently.
Yeah.
If you fly a lot, you know that status is everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. I was going to bring that up. I was like, don't you have status now to a certain place where you can go instead of hanging out somewhere else? You could go into the lounge and just chill there.
Yeah. So I have it. Sometimes I have like 6 passes, so I'm selective when I want to use those. But I had my status with American, and so I've been flying American, and I had the highest status, and so I was always upgraded first class, first aboard. It was smooth. The American now withdrew their company discount from the UFC. So the UFC, being a public company and everything, they're saving money. So now without the discount, they've pushed all of us American guys to United. United, it's just not as efficient, man. I feel like they don't have enough people. I don't know what's going on in the company. I've only been flying them for about a month or 2 now, but I haven't been on a flight yet that has worked out the way that it's supposed to.
Wow.
And God, I'm paying for it, man. I get in at midnight all the time after long, and it makes me jealous because the people that live here in Vegas, Megan O'Leary, Brendan Fitzgerald's, that they're on TV all the time. They get in their car and they drive 25 minutes to the Apex. They shoot a show. They get paid the same amount. Not that we get paid the same, but they get paid the same amount that they're contracted, like I'm contracted. But I've got to go through 12 hours of travel to get here, stay in a hotel room, 12 hours home to make the same amount of money that they go home in their car and sleep in their bed and next to their loved ones and their families. So it's made me almost reconsider where I want to be in the future if I keep this job up.
Yeah.
Is it that hard for you to go? Like, why can't you just move to Vegas?
I could. I don't think I'd want to be. I don't think I'm a Vegas guy, man. I moved to Louisiana to have that kind of family environment that I didn't have in LA. I loved LA. It got crazy and expensive, but the main factor was my son wasn't growing up in a normal movie childhood where like you get on your bike and you ride to your friend's house, kids knock on the door, you go play soccer. LA was like, we don't let him leave the house. He's stuck in his room. He has some friends, but they're sprinkled from Hollywood to the Valley. And it's like, you're not driving an hour to over the hill to go for a play date or something. So I wanted that family environment. And I've talked to people here in Vegas, man. And look, lots of people live in Vegas and they have families and they probably love it. But a lot of people that I've spoken to, they're like, Vegas isn't really an ideal place to raise a family. And obviously, if you live in Vegas, you don't hang out on the strip. You're in the communities.
Right. You're in Summerlin. Yep, in Summerlin. Yeah.
But even with that, I just like Uber drivers, they love to just chat it up. And they just tell me, they're like, the crime is so bad. The drugs are so accessible over here. The even like I had this Uber driver the other day, this woman telling me she was born and raised in Vegas. Her son was born and raised in Vegas. Her son was 12 years old. And her son said, I want to move because I don't like my life over here. And it blew my mind because for a 12-year-old kid to say that, who's never known anything else. One thing if you grew up in some small town and you go, I miss the kids knocking at the door, throwing the football in the street. But if you grew up in Vegas and this is all you know and you think it's not for you, it told me, I go, well, then it's not going to be for us. I don't, because right now I'm loving the family community feel that I have in Louisiana.
You know, I've been
Wow.
stuck in that Houston airport so many times. Like I fly in and out of there a lot, and I think 80% of the time I've been stuck for something. And I mean, again, I've been in worse airports, but I think it's just the frequency it happens in there. Do they still have that room? It's like in the hall, and it has all the old TVs around in that oval section. Remember that? And
So I mean, I must not. I probably don't land in that terminal. It's probably just my connection route,
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
leg that I go on.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure they still have that. The one that I go to, the whatever terminal I go to, is pretty nice. It's nice and new. But it's the fact that again, I'm not trying to get into the business of United, but I think they're just short on employees. You know, ever since the pandemic, they say the what do you call it? The hospitality industry is suffering.
Oh yeah.
They don't have enough workers, and I think it's really affecting airlines, specifically United. Because I was sitting on the plane last weekend after the 5-hour delay, and we're on the plane. I'm like, finally, we're gonna get going, and the pilot gets on the air, and he goes, "Unfortunately, folks, I hate to say this, but we don't have anybody to load the bags right now. The baggage people, they were busy. They didn't have enough. So we sat on the tarmac for an hour waiting for them to finish loading other planes till they got to
over.
us.
Yeah.
Just to load our planes while it was raining on the bags, and then we had to wait in line to take off. And I'm like, this has got to be fixed. I mean, this is a billion-dollar industry. We don't even have enough people to load bags, much less hope that every flight takes off on time, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just kind of spiraling out of control. But this is the life of people on the road. You know, this happens to a lot of people.
Totally, absolutely. Do you have to travel in and out of the country much? Did you get the Nexus card?
No, what is that? The Nexus card?
Oh man, that if you need to go in and out of the country, get one of those, because that's gets you in that fast track line where you can skip all the security and everything.
Okay, so I have I don't know if it's different in Canada or whatever, but we have the TSA pre-check.
It might
Do you
be
have that as
similar.
well?
I had
It's
to do a
probably the
TSA
same thing,
pre-check too. I had to do that
Same thing.
and talk to you guys, and then they gave me a card that I just kind of scan, and I get to skip all these lines. It's a lifesaver.
I definitely have TSA pre-check, which means you're not taking off your shoes, you're not taking
exactly.
your laptop out, and security. That's essential, man.
Yeah.
But it's still, I skip all the lines, and then I go, and they go, "Oh, your flight's been delayed." And so that's the issue
matter.
I'm having. But I am traveling out of the country a lot. Like I go home, excuse me, I go home after this for 12 hours, and then we go to China, and that's the road to the UFC thing coming up, and so that's another emerging pipeline for the UFC, because although our relations with China right now in America or North America are kind of questionable, that's a big market. You know, they built that PI in Shanghai. We've got a lot of fighters coming to the UFC from Asia now and making waves. So they had season 1 with Road to the UFC. It was a success. And so this is season 2 of the tournament that we're going to do in Shanghai next week. So they're big on that. That's another growing opportunity for the UFC.
Who do you see emerging now, Alan, from like, because you're so close to it all the time? And I know, and I'm a big advocator of like guys that used to fight commentating. I do struggle with guys that never fought before commentating. And I do. Like, you're not saying that, I'm saying that, but I don't want you to get in trouble. So, but what I am saying though is, who do you see now? Who's going to emerge? Like, you're watching guys, you do LFA stuff, you do UFC stuff. There's always someone like, I know you probably can walk into a gym and go, oh, that guy's going to be something, or that guy's going to be something. Who do you see now as who's going to rise up and take over?
On the fighter side of it, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not just blowing up the organization you mentioned, LFA, because I work for them, but they are man, they're killing it right now in terms of I don't remember the exact number, but they say it on almost every show.
Yeah.
And since the LFA, it was the RFA, which is what I was in, and then the RFA and Legacy merged, obviously, and made the LFA. But since that merge, or since both of those companies have been together, they've put almost 400 fighters into the UFC.
Yeah.
And you look at the UFC roster, is probably, I don't know, I'm guessing around 650. So the majority, and not all those fighters are still in the UFC, but over time, 400 fighters over the last, 10 years. So when I do those LFA shows, man, I'll be doing my research, and I'll see a guy from Russia or something, and he's like 12-2, and I watch him fight, and I go, this guy's a contender in the UFC right now. I mean,
Correct. Yeah.
this guy's ready to go, and he'll win the belt. He'll get snatched up by the UFC within a week's time, and then he'll be fighting. So the LFA's done a really good job at finding these fighters internationally. They also have a deal with LFA Brazil. So I went to Brazil with them a couple months ago, and now they're taking all these fighters from Brazil, which Brazil used to be a huge market. If you remember Jungle Fights,
I do.
that was their big league over there. And then they had one called I can't remember it right now, but they had another one kind of take over. Those kind of both went away. Maybe Jungle Fights is still around, I'm not sure. But now that the LFA is there, they are clawing at the opportunity to fight for like an international promotion like the LFA, because it's on Fight Pass. They're making more money than they would make with these local jungle fight shows. So we get there, and the talent level, guys, is so high, it blows my mind. I was just speaking about some of these fighters, the Russian guys that I'll see, that's 12-2. But when I did the card in Brazil a couple months ago, every fight on the main card was a main event here in America. I mean, it was
Jeez.
the talent was incredible. So it's kind of like a new untapped market that they're circulating fighters. And then lastly, the girls, man, there's so many girls in that promotion that they find these girls that are 18 years old and they're 6-0 in MMA, and they've been a black belt for 10 years. You know, it's these like prodigies. Like this weekend, the Mackenzie Dern.
Yeah.
They've got a handful of these girls that they keep shuffling through on this card as well. Like the one this weekend for the UFC, Vanessa Demopoulos, if you're familiar with her.
Yep.
She was a LFA girl, black belt, very good on the ground.
You know, it's crazy. Mackenzie Dern, her father came to my martial arts school back in the day, and he had her, and he says, "Oh, my daughter, I had a daughter," and I'm like, "Awesome, great," you know, like. But I watched him roll at my school, and he destroyed everybody. Like I had like UFC guys that were in my gym, and he just demolished everybody. And
then,
the dad, right?
Okay.
Megaton Diaz. And then I see later on in life, all of a sudden I see Mackenzie Dern, and he's in the corner. So right when he had his daughter, that's when I had the school, and he was telling me about her. And then all these years pass, and I see him in the corner of his daughter, who's Mackenzie Dern.
Yeah, they find these talented people like her who are jiu-jitsu prodigies at a very young age. Correct. And you can teach. I mean, look, not everyone has the attributes to learn how to strike. And I'm not trying to throw somebody in like a Ben Askren. Ben Askren was a phenomenal competitor, but he just couldn't. He couldn't learn how to strike. Right. Yeah. He just didn't have that quick twitch muscle, coordination. But you could find these athletes when they're young enough, and you can still mold them into strikers. And like a Mackenzie Dern, like she's still in that early stages where who she's with, Jason Perillo, I think. It might be her coach. Phenomenal boxing coach. It's the best kind of fit for her. You get a world-class grappler, you put them with a high-level, smart coach who's experienced, who focuses mainly on putting the hands together, and you build that fighter into a contender. And you can do that as long as you find these guys or girls, but you find these kind of prodigies early, and you start molding them at an early age.
How's the transition been on television? Because, not a lot of, I mean, obviously you're great at it, but how did you find that process? Was there times, or do you still get a little nervous when the lights come on?
I still get nervous now and then, but I kind of take it like fighting. I've never seen someone come out to a fight where I was cornering them or with them, and they go, "Man, I have no nerves. I've never seen them do well. I've never seen somebody do well. Why? It means they're because they're flat, right? They're flat. Yeah. If they have no nerves, what is nerves? Right. Nerves. Yeah, without being scientific about it, nerves is adrenaline. It's that adrenaline. That adrenaline is what keeps you on your toes and which keeps you laser focused, and which usually gives you that advantage. And so I tell my son this in soccer. I used to tell when I was teaching Muay Thai, I would tell my students this when I would corner them. They're like, "I'm super nervous. You think I'm ready?" And I go, "It's good. It's good that you're nervous. That's your adrenaline. So channel these nerves to make you hyper focused and make you just focused on obtaining the goal at hand. Don't use these nerves to say I'm flustered and I don't know if I want to be here. Just use them in a good way. Don't fight the nerves.
Yeah, don't retreat from it.
Absorb them.
Yeah.
Don't retreat from it. Don't
Yeah.
run from it. And so going back to broadcasting, you get more comfortable the more you do it, obviously. You guys know this. But whenever I have like no nerves at all, sometimes I feel like I might be flat on the air. So a little bit's not bad, you know. But it's been a good transition. And right when I got into this a couple of years ago, I was like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I want to go sit next to DC and Joe Rogan and do it. And then the more I've done it, I go, no, there's small little tweaks that you learn over the years that I've picked up on that, like, I wasn't ready a couple of years ago. You know, I've gotten so much more experience now, the more jobs that I've done doing this.
How far does it go? Like, is there a cap on, like in fighting, you're the champ, right? So that's the cap. In the industry you're in now, what would be the cap for you?
Just what I said. I mean, that's my goal. It's
to sit at the table.
Color commentating, cage side. Color for me, and you know, pay wise, I'm sure it pays more. I don't know. I haven't done color with the UFC yet, but it's for me, it's the job that all broadcasters. I know. I speak to Michael Chiesa, Anthony Smith, all these guys, and we're all gunning for the same thing. We all want to be the next guy in line, doing color commentary. It's very competitive because you've already got a good stable of guys doing it. You know, you've got the DCs, the Dominic Cruz's, Bispings, and you look at their resume and credentials. Not only did these guys been doing it for a long time, but they're Hall of Famers, man. They're former champions, and there's something to be said about it. The promotions like it just because, you know, John Anik or somebody could tee you up and go, look, I'm sitting here with the double champ DC, Hall of Famer, blah blah blah. Where when they come to me, they go, look, former welterweight contender. It's just, it doesn't have the same pizzazz. But when it really, I think it really plays into it is when if you're interviewing a Conor McGregor and there needs to be some type of relatable ground. I could interview Conor McGregor and I know I could kill it. But there's a commonality that DC would maybe have and go, look, man, being the double champ is not an easy thing. I know the pressures that have been there. And then these guys are able to speak mano to mano about something that they both feel that they can relate on. Or maybe a Conor McGregor wouldn't open up because he's like, you don't even know the pressures, Alan Jouban. You know, so that's why having these resumes is so essential, I think, for promotions to have these guys with those resumes to be able to do the talk. But that's the job. I'm gunning at getting the color commentating. And, you know, somebody who has kind of broken ground on it is Laura Sanko. She had a couple MMA fights, but she never fought in the UFC, and she didn't really fight at the highest level. Like she fought in Invicta. But she was still able to make headroom and find herself there. And so that's something that I know she has to, especially being a woman. She's a woman surrounded by men who are all these things I just said. They're champions and Hall of Famers. So she's got to find a delicate balance of when to interject and when to add her point of view and know when to stay in her lane.
I think she's good too, Alan. But do you believe that you're in a separate category because she is a female and she is good? So I'm not saying she's not good, but I am saying is that it seems like you see that now everywhere in sports, whether it be football, soccer, anything. They're placing a female in that position. Now, Laura is good. We're not saying that. I am saying though that she could jump the line because of that as well.
Yeah, possibly so. And you know, I get that, but I think that's also women's sports in general. I say women's sports, but you look at women's fighting. The rosters are much less deep. Let's take the 125 division in the UFC, for instance, women 125. That's the shallowest division. There's probably 25 fighters, right, in that division, where the welterweight division that I competed in, there's about 100 fighters. So if you go on a 3-fight win streak in the 125 women's division, not only are you going to have a number next to your name and you're all of a sudden
a title shot.
You're a title contender right away. But the sponsors, the endorsements, every girl in the UFC, they come to the UFC with 5,000 followers. At the 2 fights, they have 150,000 followers just because they're a girl. If they're somewhat attractive, it helps. You see, all the girls seem to be going to OnlyFans now, making money from that. You know, different levels of it. There's some girls like Paige Van Zant that are like getting completely naked. There's some girls that are just showing training regimens.
Yeah.
But girls are afforded that opportunity to capitalize a lot quicker than guys, just because it's so much more competitive in a guy's division, and it kind of plays itself out to you guys' point in the commentary thing as well. You know, there's not a lot of Laura Senkos that have fought in the UFC that are very attractive, that are very good at what they do, that speak very well, that understand the sport.
Right.
So she's able to jump that line very, very fast. Where me, it's like I'm in the 170 division again. I got Michael Diaz and Anthony Smith. I'm competing with all these guys.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting, that take though, and again, it's a sign of the times with women in sports commentary. I mean, and probably rightly so. Like, there is definitely a lot that are amazing at the job. And again, like, I just, I think what Mark's saying too is sometimes it seems like they just do it as a knee-jerk reaction to put someone in there.
It is in hockey in Canada. Yeah. I mean, the females that women. But this is the opposite side of it. So this has nothing to do with Laura. She's great. So what I am saying, they're horrible. Like, they're absolutely atrocious at the hockey girls here that flipped over into commentating, and they jumped the line over guys that probably are way more. Wow. And it's a fact. TSN did it. And it's like
there's some that could be great. Like, there's some that you wish would become commentators. Yeah. Like, but then there were some that, even played and just aren't good.
Yeah, that doesn't translate sometimes. I don't know why people think that.
Yeah, playing doesn't make you a good broadcaster, does it?
Yeah, it does not. And we clearly see that in Canada on TSN. I mean, the girls that are doing the hockey, one is good, and then the other three are like clueless. And you're like, yeah, you were great at hockey, but this is not translating for you. It's not, you just can't, all of a sudden hand someone a mic because you played hockey and say, go. As you know, Alan, like, you said even just earlier that you're picking up things here and there all the time. And it's true. Like, I've seen it on TSN and in Sportsnet in Canada, and I'm like, I'm not the only one. Everybody's saying it, right? But what I am saying is that, being qualified is being qualified, not just qualified because you fought, but qualified because you're honing your craft.
Yeah, yeah. And so you're saying, though, because I don't follow hockey much, but you're saying there's a women's hockey league. I don't even know. There's women's hockey league, women that have played in the league, and now they've kind of jumped.
No, they played for the national. They played for the national team, and then they play for the national team in Canada, which is kind of a big deal. And then what happens is they transfer over to the commentating part, and they're not good. And it's like now they're stuck because they got the women to do it, and they're not good. And it's not just me. It's not just me saying that. I mean, all of Canada saying it, right? So,
and they're commentating the men's.
Yes, like, NHL.
Wow,
yes.
Wow, yeah. That's interesting, man. Like, I don't know if I can make a comparison to that in football. It was a big deal a year or two ago when they had the first female referee in the NFL.
I remember
that was kind of a big thing. But I don't know if you could really. I mean, I say I don't know. Anything changes, but could you put a female like at an NFL game commentating football? Because women don't really, there's not really a women's football league, you know what I mean?
No.
I guess there is a women's hockey, but that'd be a tough sell, I think.
Well, they did that with the referee. Even with the referee, though, the female referee, she's very good, actually, right? So she is very good. And you know what the funny part is? They say that the profanity has dropped down to about 0 with her. So with another referee, right? They're swearing at him, they're yelling at him, they're f-bombing them, and then for some reason in the NFL, when these guys, listen, man, NFL, I love the NFL, but these guys come in and it's like their mom almost. You know what I mean? So they're not f-bombing their mom. So that's kind of the vibe they've got from this female referee. They said, right? But commentating's different. But I thought it was kind of cool when I heard the story about how when she gets up to them and they're, they called offside or something, and usually they're f-bombing the coach. Even the coaches are f-bombing everybody. And for some reason, they were showing the video of her when she talks to the coaches, and they were just like wearing white gloves talking to her. It was hilarious.
That won't last long.
They were kind of mining, their P's and Q's.
Exactly.
Yeah, just ask Nick
like
Nurse.
To Jesse's point.
Yeah,
I wonder if that'll change over time when when there's a call that they're not feeling.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. In the NBA, we've had female refs for a while, and Nick Nurse, for some reason, there was one lady in particular, he from the Raptors coach, former Raptors coach, and he every time she was on the court, he would be fired up, and so he got kicked out of 3 or 4 games. I think she was
That's
refereeing.
right.
Anyway,
That's right.
it was. But again, like I don't think there's really that. I think there, you know, if you're good at what you do, then
Exactly.
you were on there. Like you're on the show. Like that's what it to me it should be.
Yeah, I have no prejudice. Like when it comes to anything like that, if you're excellent at it, I tell everybody you're excellent. And if you're dog shit, you're dog shit. And it doesn't matter. And it's like people can like I have no prejudice on anything. And that's the beauty of it. When I watch a show and I have to turn the volume down to watch it, it's not good. And also too, I'm not the benchmark of what's good or bad either. That's my opinion, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny how my opinion resonates to a lot of people, whether they're female or male, when you're watching a show. Even when Laura got to the next step, I was watching her and I'm like, okay. And the only criticism I ever had of her is when she sometimes makes comments about moves in MMA over DC. And I think to myself, whoa, you know, like don't do that. Like let DC crack off.
But you know, there's the inverse though,
move.
because Joe does that to DC sometimes.
Yeah, but Joe is more versed in jujitsu wise. But I get Joe. Joe can do that because
he's
Joe
Joe.
made that he made that persona of Joe Rogan. But when you look at it, it's like, no, I would rather listen to Alan, or I'd like to listen to DC, or even Dominic Cruz or Bisbing talk about what's going on with the fighting aspect of the actual fight.
You know what's interesting about that is everybody's got an opinion. And
That's right. That's right.
Like DC gets a lot of hate, right?
Yeah, he does.
People talk about how biased he is. And look, if I'm being honest, DC might see this, but I didn't love when DC called my fights. I didn't, and I don't think I've ever said that before, but I didn't love DC called probably like the last 3 or 4 of my fights.
Yeah.
And I never felt like he was rooting for me for some whatever reason. Maybe my style just, you know, and well, I guess what I'm getting at is what I've learned is
that is interesting.
It's not necessarily that somebody's not rooting against you, because I've learned this now that I commentate people's fights. When I see something that when I see a southpaw striker with beautiful Muay Thai, I'm going to be eagerly excited about talking about this because it's relatable to me, because that was more my style.
Yeah.
And or if there's different type of mindsets of fighters. Some people are blood and guts, Dustin Poirier type of guy, and I'm that. I'm a Rocky guy. If you're a blood and guts fighter, man, I'm attracted to that. If you're an elusive, kind of shying away from it, maybe I don't talk about it as much. And so you have to find yourself trying to play up both sides. And producers get in their ear all the time and go, all right, give so-and-so a little more love. You're kind of playing heavy on one side.
Do they say that? Do they really do that?
Sometimes they will remind you, because we're all human. We're all human.
Yeah, that's right.
And just like you said, you have your preferences, Mark, like other people have opposite preferences. And so I find it such an interesting thing where I'll talk to my agent in New York was telling me his favorite people to listen to are Dominic Cruz and Anthony Smith. And I go, interesting, because I take Dominic Cruz and Anthony Smith as very analytical.
They are
somewhat monotone.
Yeah.
But
Dominic
if you want to be somewhat educated, they are very good at like educating you. This is what's going on. This is what should happen. This is what I might do. Then there's other styles. If you want to be entertained and laugh, and especially on a slow fight night, like where it's not big names, Mike Bisbing, the way that he goes in there and just makes everything a joke, he makes the time fly by. So there's different styles, but everybody's gonna have an opinion on what they like, and so you can never really make everybody happy, which we all know. But I don't know why I'm going towards this DC on this, but I worked with DC at the desk on ESPN one time, and it was a lot going on. And I got out the seat, he got in my seat to do a couple hits on some shows, and he's on his phone texting the entire time, not even paying attention. And they go, all right, guys, we're going on in 3, 2. DC puts down his phone. He does like 3 different shows. DC, give us your take on the main event. Okay, now we're going live on ABC. Give us your take on this guy. Now we're going live on ESPN. DC, do this. He knocked it all out without looking at notes, without going through it, without asking questions. What are you teeing me up on? And killed it. And then he walks off the stage and he walked by me and I go, bro, you killed that. And he stops and turns around and he goes, Jouban, thank you, brother. And then he walked away and I go, that's what people don't understand. People don't understand that, oh, they think he's biased or I don't like listening to him, but he's phenomenal at what he does. He doesn't even have to think about it. And he's got the voice, he's got the charisma, like he makes jokes. So everybody's gonna have a preference of what they like, but to get to that level that guys like DC are at, I think he's the best. I really do. I think DC is just natural at it. Sometimes I don't like when he calls my fights, but if I have a big fight, I want to see DC. I want to hear DC on the call.
Yeah, I think so too. I like DC's talk. I really do.
And my son throws cans at me. My son throws cans at me about DC. He hates them. He's like, Dad, he sucks. And I'm like,
oh,
what are you talking? I go, what are you talking about, Dave? And my son was in the MMA business before anybody was in the MMA business. And he literally is he's watching a show with me, and I don't go out in public to watch MMA. I stay home to watch it. And he'll literally just start swearing at the TV when DC comes on. And I'm like, no, DC's awesome, man. He's like, he sucks. And I think my son's having a hard time separating DC fighting John Jones to DC the commentator. So that I think that's
a lot of people have that problem.
I think that's where the disconnect comes, because my son was a John Jones nut hugger from like when John Jones was 5-0 and not even in the UFC yet. My son was like, that guy's going to be somebody, Dad. And I'm like, no way, whatever. He's going to, and of course, look at John Jones now. And when time went on, and that's where I think he can't separate the John Jones from DC thing. But when you do it through commentating, but I like Dominic Cruz too. And most people shit on Dominic Cruz all over the place, but Dominic Cruz is but Dominic Cruz comes across as a professional sports announcer to me, right?
Yeah.
Listen, when I owned the MFC, we had Chevallo on our show, right? And he's been on our podcast and he was awesome. And one day I was in the meeting and we were all there talking about the show, and I'm like, oh, Chevallo drives me nuts, man. If I hear one more scenario about someone's dog's ass or whatever he says, or, and you know what happened? At that time, Andrew Simon, who is the president of Access, goes to Chevallo and says, oh, Pavlich doesn't like your commentating. And I never said that. I love Chevallo. He's an awesome guy. But people are touchy in the entertainment industry, very touchy. And you know what happened? After that, Chevallo was kind of cold to me, like when he would come to the show all the time. When I asked him to be on the podcast, he jumped to come on the podcast. And as you know, Jesse, it was a great episode with him. But what I'm saying to you is that you got to be like, I have a problem with filters. I don't tell my opinion to nothing that doesn't have anything to do with me, only things that have to do with me. So when I said that about Chevallo, I didn't think that he was going to go run and tell him. He ran and tell him, and I stand by it. I said, yeah, I got tired of the scenarios. I like a professional sports announcer. I was big on Kenny Rice and Boss Rutan. People were like, and what happened with Kenny, people are like, he's too professional. How can you be too professional? It makes no sense. It makes no sense to me. I thought Kenny Rice was like the highest end announcer. He does the Kentucky Derby. He's that guy. That's the way I looked at Dominic Cruz, and you know what, Alan, you're the in-betweener. You could do that, or you could be kind of more like DC too as well. So you have both. So I think that could play out long-term way better.
I agree with you, man. Mm-hmm. If I had to put myself in there somewhere, I've always kind of told my wife, I go, I'm a little bit like Dan Hardy, where I can kind of geek out on stuff. Like Dan's so good at finding these subtleties.
And I think Dan is awesome too.
We had him on too, right?
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah.
Dan's very smart, right? Dan sees things a certain way, and he's very he puts things very elegantly, the way that he tells you. And so sometimes I have that Dan side. Sometimes I feel like I have a Paul Felder side, where I feel like Paul Felder is the guy that could work with anyone. He'll go with Bisbing and do the crazy fun stuff, and then he'll go with whoever. And but yeah, I have a mixed in there somewhere, and I feel like that's a safe place to be, because if you need to be over analytical, you got to go to that spot sometimes. And if you have to go and just crack jokes to kill the time, because sometimes, look, sometimes fights aren't fun, man. You get in a 5-round main event and it's two guys or girls grappling and not a lot is happening. Now, how do I fill 25 minutes of space and keep this crowd entertained? You got to be able to do it.
Totally.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I would just be shaking my head when you guys are doing that and you're trying to make something out of nothing. That is a gift.
It's tough.
Because I couldn't
tough.
do it.
Like, I mean, you're on and you know everyone's watching and everything rides on you, and because you can't have the dead space, you can't have that time when everyone's like, oh, they have no idea what to say here. You can't let everyone feel that awkwardness that you feel constantly.
And you can't scream out, "This is trash." You know what I mean?
Right. You still have to find a way to promote the product, but when you're doing shows all the time, and obviously main events fall out and you have to replace it, and it's not a banger. But you know what happens is you do these shows all the time, and sometimes you get not as entertaining main events or not as entertaining cards. But what it allows is sometimes it allows these super cards to emerge out of nowhere, like we're getting pretty soon with that BMF one with Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje.
Great fight.
You look at the lineup, the entire main card, even the prelim, the prelims are Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Michelle Pereira or whatever. I mean,
crazy.
That could be like an arena show.
Totally.
Stephen just main evented wherever it was against Kevin Holland, and that was one of the fights of the year thus far, or whenever that was. But he's on a prelim, so sometimes you have shows that are a little bit slower, not as big of a name appeal, but then it allows you to take some of these fights that weren't on these Apex cards and line them all up on this mega card like we're getting in that one, man. Because that's one of the best lineups that I've seen in a while from the UFC.
Fight wise,
the amount of caliber of fun fights. Because, like I said, all of those, there's about 5 to 7 fights on that BMF card that could headline the Apex any day of the week, 100%.
Wow,
that's cool. Well, and I know you were in between travel, and you got shows coming up and everything. But we appreciate you taking some time out and talking to us again, and coming back on the show. And hey, we want to see more of you on TV. I hope we do.
We do.
Yeah.
Me too. I want to see more. It's coming, man. Like I said, Dana's brought me into the power slap world, which, man,
we'll stay off that. You know what's funny about that? I have such strong opinions on the power slap thing. And
I figured that.
And I know you can't. I get it. You can't talk shit about it like I can, because I think it's. So I'm going to stop there, because if I start, we could go on for like, oh my god.
Mark, I had a feeling, man. I knew it. And
there's no convincing, bro. But come on, come on, bro.
But I'll tell you this. I did a little segment for him yesterday on it, and Dana came down to the studio and watched us do it live. And I'm talking about, you talk about do I get nervous? I was nervous when Zach got in my ear and go, Dana wants to be on set. He wants you to do this a certain way. Now Dana's watching us, and I'm like, holy crap, man! I hope I'm giving him what he wants. But he was, and I'm not just like kissing his butt. I've never seen Dana that nice. After the show, he was so complimentary of everything that we did and how we set up the fighters and made it feel more as a real sport to everybody that's against it, which I know a lot of people are, Mark, and I understand that. But I mean, he's so passionate about it. It really blew my mind. We talked for 10 minutes after the show, and he was just telling me how much stuff he has going on and the numbers and how much momentum they actually have that people don't realize. And it's that he is 100% into this thing, and he's gotten me on board. Like, he's got such big plans for it that I can't talk about, but he was just kind of telling us all these things. And he's like, I want you guys to be a part of it. I love what you're doing.
Yeah.
For me, I know there's a heavy fan base that don't like it. There's a fan base that does like it, but he definitely feels like it's gonna start turning people, but he feels like there's a big upside to it. And for me, I'm just happy to have more work and get more practice and do stuff.
And that's where I can connect to. So as long as you're working more and making more cheese, and we see more pock, bang, bang, and we see, you know what I'm saying, bro?
The watermelon.
Yes, bro. Are you crazy? Funny. I can't even look at a watermelon anymore without saying that. It's so insane.
Funny, man.
It's in my brain. I love watermelon. Okay. Jesse's wife tells me, because in Canada, you can't have watermelon, like, you know, maybe where you live, but in Canada, you can't have watermelon 365 days a year. You can have it between May something and like August, late August, maybe September, and then the rest of the watermelon is horseshit. So his wife messaged me yesterday saying, "Mark, it's a go. Watermelon season has begun." She knows. So I'm like, okay. I tell my wife, "Let's go." And bro, no one eats more watermelon than I do. Nobody in the world. And my wife cuts it up in a way and makes it cold for me, and I eat it like a snack, like popcorn, all day long. And when I saw your wife do that, I am traumatized for life at 55 years old. I see a watermelon, and I'm like, "Pock, pock," and people are looking at me like, "What's this weirdo doing, man?" But I do it every time, and my wife laughs every time I do it. But your wife made it famous now. She's famous.
I can't wait to tell her that, man, because I don't know how to pick watermelon. And one time she educated me, "Pock, pock," with the hollow sound, "Pock, pock," good. Back, bad. Back, bad. And now I'm doing the same thing. It's a Thai thing, man. It's a Thai thing.
It's money, though. It's like there has to be a T-shirt made with a watermelon on it with that, so people remember. You want to know once and for all what a good watermelon is, because I can't stand a bad watermelon. That is like someone
make a shirt for my wife.
Yeah, someone stole money from me. When I have a bad watermelon, it's like, you stole from me, man. I want a good watermelon.
The expectations were so high.
They are high.
That's right.
They are.
Well, look for that new T-shirt going on sale soon at alanjouban.com.
I have to credit you guys on that one. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Alan, for joining us tonight. And hey, good luck, man. We're looking forward to the next event.
Safe travels, buddy.
Thank you, guys. Same.
Well, thanks so much, Alan, for joining us. Hey, man, I like seeing him on TV. I really do. I mean, he's a good-looking guy. He
ESPN,
was a model,
UFC,
right? and just, but enjoyable to watch and likable to watch. Like, that to me is one of my things. That's why I like DC, because
I totally agree.
To me, like, it's more. There's a lot of knowledge there, and to me, that's the foundation of these guys. But then it's personable on top. And I like that a lot. I like that.
Yeah, it's like a dude you could sit around, eat popcorn with, and watch an MMA show.
And
I mean, like, it seems like
we think, like, I mean, Tony Romo, which we both agree, I think, is the greatest color commentator.
I totally agree
right now. But he's like that. He's got knowledge, but he's so personable, and everything is like you're sitting there having a beer, watching the game. And I mean,
we can also see Alan in the future being that next guy on the main panel of the UFC. You could see it, no question.
Yeah, I think then that's what's that's the thing. But it is an interesting topic which you brought up of the competition to get in there. Like, the competition in there, like, when you think about it, it's actually harder to get behind the table at a UFC event than it is to get in the octagon at a UFC event. Like,
I think so.
When you think about it, it's like, wow, that is actually really tough. There's not many people that have the opportunity to do this. And so to get in there is a big deal. And again, that's something too. Like, anyone that looks at broadcasters and maybe shits on broadcasters, you need to realize, like, it is a job that is not at all easy. And I'm not saying that it's not, like, a great job. It's a great job. Like, it's awesome, but it's not easy. You think you can sit there in front of a camera and talk like you're just talking with a regular person? It's not something to do. And I worked with so many people that are trying to get them to be on camera for certain things. And, you got to fight with them for 30 minutes. Yeah. You and I have been in things where we fought with people for like over an hour of trying to get them to do something naturally. And being natural when someone's watching you and telling you to be natural is very difficult. So
I have a video. I can never put it out of the cliff, but I call it the cliff, and it's a fantastic video. But Jesse and I once did a video shoot with an individual, and it literally took 57 takes to say his name and to say where he worked and his job title. It was crazy. Just, it's not a natural thing, everybody. And we know that. And we know that.
Yeah, it is. And it is. It's a special skill that people have. Thanks anyway. Thanks for joining us tonight, Alan. That was great.
Fantastic.
What's next?
Next is you go to backscape.com and get yourself one, everybody. The summer's coming and you're going to take that shirt off. And I'm telling you I'm telling you, you got to get one. Fantastic product. I want you to go check it out for yourself. Go to backscape.com. You've probably seen the logo on our banner multiple times during the broadcast. And also to Crystal Glass, your clear choice for all your glass needs. Call 310 Glass or go to crystalglass.ca.
That's right. Well, it's another week, another time in sports. We'll see what happens in the playoffs.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
We'll see what happens in the NBA playoffs here. I've been watching. I just watched a clip today of Shaq going off on someone for saying Michael isn't the greatest of all time. He actually says Kobe's better than LeBron.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
I know. I wouldn't either, but Shaq
I
does.
would say,
Shaq believes
listen, we've had this argument multiple times, and I'm telling you, Jordan is the GOAT.
Yes,
Gretzky's the GOAT. Stop it, everybody. Stop it. Listen, people are talking about McDavid being with the G word. Stop it. He hasn't won shit.
Yeah, he's got to win.
He's got the best highlight in the NHL probably, but doesn't matter. You got to win. This is the win game we're in here, man. And you can like the person. Generational people will tell you, oh, Tiger Woods is the best golfer. No, Jack Nicklaus won the most majors still. So this is what I'm trying to tell you. It's because you're generational. You're saying whatever it is. Listen, look at Jordan, how he escalated people into like next levels and won all these championships and points. And come on, stop it, everybody. Get in touch.
And Shaq finished with one thing. He said, what's Michael's record in the finals? 6-0. LeBron can't even touch that. So
yeah,
there
correct.
You go.
and I agree with LeBron too. A lot of the players that he played weren't any good. Like they just weren't. I mean, he carried people, right? And now I think in LA, this series, I think he's getting carried a little bit himself now, like by younger players for the first time ever in his career.
Well, we'll see what happens there. And hey, lots going on in the world of sports, obviously playoff time. And then the summer lull kicks in, but then we'll be back before NFL before we know it. Can't wait.
Oh, let's go.
Until next time, everybody, that's Mark Pavlich. I'm Jesse Martineau. Thanks once again, Alan, for joining us, and we'll see you next time, everybody, on the Me and Jesse podcast.
Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/Me and Jesse.